A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime.
Breaking right now at 11, President Trump addresses the nation after the U.S. attacks 3 Iranian nuclear sites, calling the military operation a spectacular success. Good evening. I'm Natalie Duddridge, in for Jessica Moore tonight. The president said the objective of the strikes was to end the nuclear threat posed by Iran. Trump says all American planes are safely out of Iranian airspace following the strikes. During his speech from the White House, the president warned of far greater attacks if Iran does not make peace.
Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror.
President Trump confirming tonight that the U.S. military launched airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. Trump called it a precise strike and said all American aircraft returned unharmed.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
The move marks the first direct U.S. strike on Iranian soil, which experts say was designed to destroy deeply buried targets.
So the United States deployed the B-2 bombers. They dropped they're capable of carrying, each one of the bombers are capable of carrying 2 of these MOPs, the massive ordnance penetrators. And he said that they dropped their ordnance on sites. He said 3 sites, Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan, all key components in the nuclear weapon production.
Defense sources tell CBS News Israel was given a heads up before the strikes and that President Trump spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu afterwards. This comes after Trump initially said he'd give Iran 2 weeks before he'd make a decision.
President Trump came to the decision to go ahead and pull the trigger at this time because the Iranians were no longer going to be willing to engage in the negotiation.
Retired General Mark Kimmett spoke on CNN.
I'm fascinated and candidly, I'm impressed. I never really could understand what the 2-week pause meant or what it was for. What was left to negotiate? What were we going to expect the Iranians to offer? In many ways, it was much like a Trump deal. I mean, he's trying to make a deal to buy an apartment, but all of a sudden the apartment was destroyed. So where's the negotiation? So I think the use of deception and trickery in this case, first of all, was successful, but second of all, saved the potential loss of American lives.
Defense sources tell CBS News the U.S. reached out to Iran diplomatically, stressing that these strikes are the only ones planned and that regime change is not the objective. Experts warn the strikes could prompt retaliation.
The possibility of cyber attacks and the possibility of terrorism.
And President Trump says Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs Chairman Dan Kane will hold a news conference on the situation at the Pentagon. That's happening tomorrow at 8 a.m. And now we want to bring in someone to discuss today's military action. Matthew Schmidt, Associate Professor of National Security and Political Science at the University of New Haven. Professor, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Natalie. It's great to be here.
Well, we heard President Trump say that the nuclear sites attacked today are, quote, totally obliterated. Can you tell us how these types of bombs would have achieved that and when we can expect an intelligence report?
Sure. First of all, I think your first intelligence report really came at the press briefing with the president, and the next more detailed one will be in the morning once they decide what they're willing to say out loud. As for how this happened, basically the initial bomb burrows into the ground, blows up. You drop another bomb down the same hole, it burrows in a little bit further, blows up, and so forth until you get to the bottom. My guess is it probably took at least 2, probably 3 bombs down the same chute in order to get the facility at Fordow.
Now, if this does not completely dismantle Iran's nuclear program, does it at least set it back for a period of time?
Yeah, if what we've seen in these preliminary reports is anywhere near true, it's going to be set back for years. Remember, it's not just what happened today, it's what the Israelis have been doing beforehand. And there are things that have been going on that have not involved, exploding things, but have been taking down, power systems and all the backup support systems that are in line. And all of that would have to be rebuilt to restart this program.
And can you also talk about if or what kind of retaliation Iran might consider both on American troops stationed in the Middle East and potential cyber attacks here at home?
Yeah, I think the easiest and fastest would be cyber attacks against our own infrastructure. You would see missile attacks against American troops throughout the region. And in the longer term, you could certainly see terrorist attacks against the American homeland or elsewhere.
Professor Schmidt, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
And also tonight, stepped-up security was seen outside Temple Emmanuel in Manhattan. The NYPD announced it is deploying additional resources to religious, cultural, and diplomatic sites across New York. The department says it is also coordinating with federal partners. And New York Governor Hochul posting in part, I am receiving intelligence briefings and closely monitoring the evolving situation in Iran alongside federal and local partners. The New York State Police are working to protect at-risk sites and fight cyber attacks. And stay with CBS News New York for the very latest on the U.S. assault on Iran. Our morning show team will have much more beginning at 6 a.m. and you can get updates anytime on the CBS News app.